Good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome you or open the Town of Ayer Select Boards Tuesday, March 30th, 2021 meeting. The open session remote participation. Due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, Governor Baker issued an emergency order temporarily suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. Public bodies otherwise governed by the open meeting law are temporarily relieved from their requirement that meetings be held in public places, open and physically accessible to the public, so long as measures are taken to ensure that public access to the body's deliberations through adequate alternative means. This meeting will be broadcast live on Channel 8 and on Zoom. The public may participate remotely by following the call-in information at the bottom of the live broadcast screen. For the Zoom meeting information relating to remote participation, please contact Carly Antonellis, the Assistant Town Manager, at atm@ayer.ma.us or 978-772-8220, extension 100, prior to the meeting. If we could start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. There we go.
I pledge
allegiance to the
flag
flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Was there any changes to the agenda as it was sent out?
I don't have any changes.
I have none.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Seconded.
All right, Board Member Hood, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Livingston, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, and so the agenda is approved as presented. I don't have any announcements this evening. However, I would like to ask for an observation of a moment of silence. This week, the town lost Janet Lewis, who was a longtime town official, or I'm sorry, town employee, and a really well-known member of our community. So if we could please have a moment of silence for Miss Lewis. Great, thank you. And Miss Lewis, I know her from when I was a child and I used to hang out with her kids, but her time working for the town predates me. So I didn't know if anybody had wanted to say anything of their experience with working with Miss Lewis.
I remember the first time I went into the town hall when I was thinking about running and talked to her. And she was just so funny. And then I guess she knew my father, so she would tell me stories about my father and everything. So she was fun. She was nice.
She was definitely a character.
Yeah, she always had a giant smile when I came into the office to say hi to her, and I always brightened my day. So she was a fantastic person.
Yeah, very nice.
Janet definitely loved the town, and I had the great honor of working with her in this office for the first 4 years that I came to Ayer. And she really loved the town, and she made everything fun that she did. And I know that she was involved in so many things even before my time, but two things she was really proud of was her involvement with the 4th of July committee from the time that got reorganized. And also she was very proud of being on the Veterans Memorial Garden committee. And I know she worked very hard on that. So Janet will definitely be, I think, missed by the town of Ayer, and we wish all the best to her family during this difficult time.
Exactly. Thank you, Robert. Okay, the first thing we have up then is for public input. Is there anybody on the line for public input? Okay, so not seeing or hearing anybody, go ahead and we'll move on to our first agenda item this evening is the continued public hearing about the poll petition for National Grid and Verizon. Do we open this again as a public hearing, Janice, or?
No, I believe because we continued it, so
Okay,
technically it's still open. Yeah,
all right, thank you.
I know, I was looking for the thing myself. So.
Okay, so I think, so I'm gonna guess we're gonna have an update from Superintendent Wetzel. Is that correct?
Yes.
Hi, Mark, how are you?
Good, thank you. And Carly, can you put up the National Grid petition sketch?
Sure. That's the Word document you sent.
No, the Word document's next. I just want to kind of point out that it's the, this one, do you have that?
Hold on one sec. Yeah, just give me 1 second. I thought you wanted the other document, but I can get it real
I'll do
fast.
after this, so I'll
Okay.
just explain kind of the concerns we had, and then I met with the engineer from National Grid on site to go over the different options, and so I can explain that.
Yep, I just need 1 second. Sorry. Oh, there's so many email. Here we go. And then. Okay.
Hey, there we go.
And then this is the original plan they submitted.
Right. So just to give it an overview of what they're proposing. So P1 right in the middle there on Copeland Drive is the new pole they're proposing, and it's going to replace an old pole P1 that you can see where it's just above that. And then they're going to put in 2 additional poles on Littleton Road, and they don't need to petition the town on that because that's in Mass DOT's state highway layout. And so my first question was, why can't they come off of P10? And I'll show you that when we put the pictures up. But so P10 is the existing pole in the middle of the island that I've been trying to get them to move, but it's there's just not a feasible way to move that at this point. So P9-50 is going to be the pole they're going to tap into the electric lines that run between P9 and P10, and then run the power off of that to P1. P950-84 is a support pole. They'll just have a guy wire going over to that. I was concerned about that because I know on the east side of Willard Street, which isn't in the picture there, but I'll show you on the aerial. We have water and sewer and gas in the shoulder of the road, and I was concerned that there'd be conflicts with our utilities. But doing the investigation, our utilities cross over just before that. So that's the proposal. One of the questions that I asked them is, why couldn't you come off P11 to P1? And the problem with that is it doesn't, the lines don't stay in the right of way. They actually cross private property. So I think feasibly they could do it, but it's a big effort to get an easement across there. And then if someone wants to develop that property, there's an issue with that because now they have a wire in the way. So anyways, can you put up the aerial?
That is,
I think it was a Word doc.
yep, just give me 1 second. Okay, here we go.
So here's two pictures. One is the an aerial from Google Earth, and you can see there's the little island in the middle of Copeland Drive where the existing P10 pole is, and all the wires going down to Copeland Drive come off of that currently, and so they're going to put a new pole in over in the little island in front of Lazy Mary's, and then a support pole across the street on just west side of Willard Street. So that gives you kind of an overview of what's out there. There's a lot of stuff out there. If you look at the street view on the right, you can see there's a lot of power lines out there. There's already an existing guy line at the corner of Willard, and now we'll have another one up about where that driveway is. And so it's not an ideal situation. We also asked if they could bring the power in underground. They can do that, but they don't pay for it. So Epic would have to pay for that, and I don't know if we can legally require them to do that. It's a pretty big expense to divert all the lines underground. So I think that's been properly engineered, and they looked at all the alternatives, and so I recommend that the town approve the pole placement.
Could you repeat that, Mark? I couldn't hear what you last said as far as your recommendation.
So I recommend that the town approve the pole placement.
Okay.
So I do have a question. I might be remembering, but compared to what was presented at the last meeting to this one, it doesn't appear that there's been any changes to the what they're presenting for poles, and that one new pole that would be on the island in front of Lazy Mary's, it was brought up as a possible safety concern due to obstruction of traffic.
Right, and I looked at that, and I don't see that that's an issue, because it's on the right side as you're making a right turn, so you don't have it's not going to block the traffic going in the easterly direction. So there's no obstruction of view there.
Any other questions, Scott or Janice? Or
I have
other
no questions.
Thanks.
are there other, aside from asking Epic to pay for this, are there alternative ways of possibly getting this funded to do an underground placement?
I don't think so. You know, we've talked about looking at, and we actually have a grant to look at putting the lines on Park Street underground. It's a pretty expensive process, and I don't think at this point it would warrant evaluating Littleton Road for underground power. It's just, you just saw from that picture, there's a lot of lines out there. There's a lot of services, and so I think the effort to do that, maybe long-term that might work, but for this case, I think Epic's trying to get their power upgraded for their facilities.
Any other comments or questions?
I have none.
Okay. Is the board comfortable making a motion on this? Or
I'll make a motion to approve the poll petition as presented.
Seconded.
Okay, Board Member Hood, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Livingston, how do you vote?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. So the petition is approved. Great. Mark, thank you very much for following up and the extra work that you did with this.
So with that, now I'll make the motion to officially close the public hearing.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right. Board Member Livingston, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Hood, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, and the public hearing is closed. All right, great. Our next item up is we have an annual town election update from Ms. Copeland, the town clerk.
Hello, good
Good
evening.
evening, Madam Clerk.
Hello.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. So I wanted to give an update. The state legislature just approved some more updates, temporary changes to the election laws that are in favor for us during the pandemic. So I just wanted to review them, and I'm going to give a shout out to her now. Cindy has been helping me get everything updated on the website. So I thank you, Cindy, as always. So mostly the changes are from last year. It was chapter 45 of the Acts of 2020. So, but they only continued these changes until the end of March, which is tomorrow. So they extended them to the end of June to include local elections. So what does that mean to us? It means that we are able to offer early voting by mail or mail-in ballots. It's several different terms, but it's the same thing. Also very similar to absentee ballots. So I do have the updated applications. All of these need to be requested in writing. So I can't take a phone call and I can't take an email. I do need a signature. So the applications are all going up on our website, which will be great. The other change for our town is that we will not have the checkout tables. So that was a change with COVID and so forth, just to make everybody feel more comfortable for the in-person voting. So it's still at the Great Hall. You come into the front door, check into your precinct, receive your ballot, use the voting booth, and then you will deposit your ballot into the voting machines. And then we're still going to have the exiting to the back of the town hall, just again to keep that traffic flow moving along. Of course, if anybody needs to exit towards the front of town hall or utilize the elevators, of course, that is not an issue. Of course, you can do that. So it's really worked out well. I think we've had a lot of positive people kind of like that in and out sort of moving along for the in-person voting. The last day to request the mail-in ballot, because you do have to afford time for mailing, is 4 business days before the election. So that's May 5th, Wednesday, May 5th at 5 p.m. And it means I have to receive a signed ballot or application, excuse me, not ballot, application by 5 p.m. So again, that can be email, faxed, or mailed. And when I say mailed, I like to talk about our other unsung heroes is our black lock boxes that were put at both doors. And they are there for all business, but very specifically for the ballots. So in applications. So I encourage everybody to use the lock boxes, especially during the voting. We check them multiple times a day. They are checked at night and I check them over the weekend. So please use them. I will leave some applications. There's plastic sleeves that we've put outside with different forms. So I'll have those outside as well to help anybody. But if anybody needs an application, they need to call our office or they email us and we will get them out to everybody. They're not automatically being mailed. I know there was postcards from the state last year that you either loved it or you hated it. So just request it and we'll help everybody out the best that we can. And so I'm pretty excited that the voting by mail is still going to be encouraged because we're still kind of in a big question mark timeframe with this COVID. So I want everybody to feel comfortable. And the last day to register to vote for town meeting and town election is next Tuesday, April 6th at 8 p.m. So again, we've been reminding everybody and getting that information out. And again, that can be done online, or if you need the forms, please let us know. I do leave them in the plastic sleeves outside of town hall. So I think that's almost all my updates because I'm trying not to take too long. All the information is getting updated on our websites, and the signs will be going out. I feel confident. I don't want to jinx it that we're not going to have any winter weather. So I feel good about getting all the signs out. And I did order special signs reminding folks about the mailing ballot opportunities. So for early voting and for absentee. So and I put that out there that deadline is May 5th. So hopefully we're reminding people and trying to encourage people, as many people, to be involved. And so it's a 2021 election link on the About Ayer. When you're on our webpage, on the left corner is an About Ayer tab. And that's where Cindy puts a lot of our current events and so forth. So that's where she's gonna put that. And just as a reminder, we have the ballot. So the ballot has been finalized and it's gonna be sent out to printing. So that as soon as we have that, I'll be posting that. So that way everybody's aware of the candidates that are running. But as a reminder, it's not the town clerk's office or the town hall's job to promote or give information on candidates. It's up to the candidates to run their campaign. And as such, I don't run forums or debates or anything like that. That's usually done by a private group of citizens. And I know that previously APAC has helped with citizens that have approached them for that. So, but it's really the candidate that's running for office. I don't have info or give any information either way on somebody. That's not what I do. Is I create the ballot and I run an election. So I don't really give information on candidates or questions. So just as a reminder, because a few people have asked me if I'm going to be hosting a forum, and that's just not appropriate for the town clerk to be doing anything like that. So, and nor have we ever done anything like that. So, but I think that's it. I don't know if there's any questions or anything I haven't covered, but again, we're going to be putting all that information out. Signs are going out. Fire station signs going to be updated. It's election time. Again.
Great, thank you. Any questions?
No questions, thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Well, Madam Clerk, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for letting me have a few minutes.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, our next item, moving right along here, is our town manager's report. Robert, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I hope everyone is well. In terms of the administrative update, since the board last met, we've been focused on three major things. Obviously, the FY22 budget finalization, town meeting and town meeting preparations, and our reopening efforts. You have in your packet the warrants that were reviewed and approved since the board last met on March 16th. And in the interest of time, I'll get to the action items unless there are any questions from the board on any administrative matters since we last met. In terms of the COVID-19 update and the reopening plan update, the town's COVID preparedness remains status quo, which is a good thing. Again, all of our departments have taken this as the #1 priority of keeping everybody safe and healthy over the last almost 13 months now, 12, 13 months. So those efforts continue. As many of you probably saw last Thursday, the Massachusetts Department of Public Health community COVID map, Ayer did go back from green to yellow, as did some other communities in our area. So the Board of Health, Neshoba Boards of Health are watching that trend closely, and we continue to promote that though vaccinations are being deployed, that it's important to continue to wear masks inside and outside of any public property, social distancing, all of those protocols we keep stressing, and will continue to do that as we move forward. And also keeping in mind that though folks are either have their first or second vaccination, there are many folks that still don't, that aren't either fully vaccinated, whether they be employees or residents in the town. And to just be cognizant of that, we're making great progress, and we want to continue that trend. In terms of the reopening plan, as an update, as we mentioned and discussed last time, the town is taking a phased approach, and phase 1 will start on Monday, April 5th. That will coincide with the Ayer Shirley Regional Schools going back to full-time in-person learning, which is a huge step. And as they do that, we'll start the appointment system here at the town hall and the DPW, and we'll be doing some public outreach this week on that. Additionally, we are going to be putting up a tent on the Columbia Street side of the town hall, sort of near where it won't impede the handicap parking, but over near where the town accountant's office is. I will be setting up an outdoor station as well as we move into the warmer weather. We'll be able to do a lot of appointments and things out there as well. So you'll see that going up on the 5th as well. Additionally, the decision has been made that as the COVID situation continues, the facilities department is in the process of retrofitting all of the window counters in the town hall with permanent appropriate barriers. So the town clerk and assessor's office, select board, treasurer, tax collector. And our goal is, with the trends continuing after the election on May 11th, is to begin to move towards sort of window service and so forth as we move into the next phase. So those efforts will be underway. Those improvements will be funded through the CARES reimbursement funding at this time. Additionally, as discussed last time, in talking with the Parks and Rec director, the Parks Commission and the Board of Health are working and looking towards an opening of the Sandy Pond Beach for their normal season. They usually look to open that the week before Memorial Day, which would be around May 22nd. In talking to both the Parks Director and a representative from the Board of Health, it looks like that plan is moving forward, and that's the schedule at this time. So that's encouraging. Additionally, I'll be talking with the library director again this week as the library board of trustees and the library director look towards their phase 1 with respect to the library, and there should be some public information coming on that shortly. And then lastly, since I met with the board last, I did meet with the director of the Council on Aging. And one of the challenges we have down there, as was mentioned when we talked about the need for a new senior center, is the space is very restrictive in terms of the size and in terms of doing social distancing. And you're dealing also with a population that we're rapidly, hopefully getting vaccinated, but a vulnerable population. I talked at length with the director and her staff about putting together a plan basically from Memorial Day through Labor Day to move a lot of the programs outside, whether it's under a tent or so forth, and partnering with other departments such as the fire department, the police department, to have a major event, if you will, that's socially distant and safe with all the protocols outside for seniors, and looking at ways that we can have a successful programmatic season through the good weather, given the limitations of the COA site. So we'll continue to keep the select board updated. Think of this maybe as a standing item these next few meetings as we move into the reopening phase. And as I mentioned too, what will govern also the success of our plan also will depend on trends with the COVID infection rate from the federal and state level. But we are definitely moving in the right direction, and we're pleased with our plan. So I don't know if there's any initial questions from the board on that. Like I said, we'll continue to keep you updated. We will have some public outreach later this week about just the procedure for setting up an appointment under the appointment system. Okay, the next item, and I'm joined by the finance manager, Ms. Cabri, and the fire chief, Chief Johnston. And as I put in your packet, we're going to be recommending that the select board, that there's a need to have a special town meeting right before the annual town meeting to resolve a shortfall in the ambulance enterprise fund. And as I put in the packet, this shortfall, and Ms. Cabri and the chief can speak to this shortfall is not being driven by expenditures or it's not a management issue. What we have come to observe is due to COVID-19, there have been impacts to the ambulance runs and actually a decrease. So there's a decrease in revenue or shortfall. And if that shortfall needs to be resolved before the end of the fiscal year, is why we're proposing a single article special town meeting to transfer some funds from ambulance retained earnings to balance this moving forward. And as I put in the packet, as of March, Ms. Cabri had calculated, and we're putting up the slide. This slide, which was in the packet, put together by Ms. Cabri, shows that the estimated shortfall, and this was as of March, is about $7,185. And in just a minute, I'll have her go through the detail. We're requesting or recommending that the town meeting consider authorizing up to $20,000 from retained earnings. If we don't need the full 20,000, obviously it reverts back. But the reason for that is we still have April, May, and June to go through the ambulance enterprise fund, and want to make sure that we have the appropriate amount to address that. So with that, through the chair, I just have Lisa just give an overview as to what an overview of the accounting that leads to this shortfall. And then if there are any questions for the chief or Ms. Cabri. And then just to conclude, next Tuesday, you would see the special town meeting warrant. It would be a single item at 7 o'clock, asking town meeting to authorize the transfer to balance out this enterprise fund. Lisa.
So, good evening, everyone. So Robert, I think you covered most of it actually. The ambulance services, the runs that we make have definitely decreased, at least for the first 9 months of the fiscal 20. And it is, well, at least the chief and I concur that it's likely due to COVID, because, there were, people had to stay at home, so there were less falls. The elderly were confined to quarters, and there were less elective surgeries and so forth. Hospitals were actually shut down except for COVID purposes. So it makes sense that we had fewer ambulance runs. And we didn't know this, obviously, at the time that we developed the FY21 budget. As far as ambulance service, you see that we projected it based on what we knew then was actual histories or annualized amounts. And it took till March that, when COVID hit and things were shut down. And so we're watching we may recover to some degree in the last remaining months of the fiscal year. However, we're suggesting a safety net, basically, is what it is. The $20,000 is a safety net, just in case, things don't get any better. They continue to be sort of level. And as Robert did indicate, if it's not used, it will just revert back to ambulance retained earnings. So I would recommend as a safety net to approve the article for a special town meeting.
Any questions for Scott or Janice or?
No questions, thanks.
Mr.
No
Chairman,
questions.
Sure. Robert?
through you, I don't know if Chief Johnston, did you, through the chair, if you wanted to add
Sure,
anything?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I could add a
Yeah,
couple
go
of
ahead.
things. Just some, since Lisa gave the financial end of it, just some quick numbers for you. So in 2019, for instance, we had 1,545 ambulance calls. In 2020, we did 1,377. It's something you usually don't see, is everything tends to go up. So it was a difference of 168 ambulance calls. So certainly that was a shortfall that you don't anticipate. The good news is so far, and we look at the calendar year too, that our 2021 numbers are more like 2019. So we're back at where we should have been before, or where we were before pre-COVID. So we'll just have to see how that trend continues. As everyone alluded to, there's no doubt that, as we all know, a year ago, nobody wanted anything to do with the EMS service or a hospital, and that trend happened to continue throughout the year. So we'll just keep an eye on it, like both Robert and Lisa mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Johnson. Lisa, can I ask you something? And please treat me like a high school student where there's no stupid questions, but I'm just wondering, so I'm sure we're not the only town or public safety entity to have this experience. Is it at all possible that this is something that could be reimbursed through the CARES Act?
Not to my knowledge, not at this point. I mean,
Okay.
they did pass the Biden bill, and we're still, the experts are still trying to find out what that means. But as far as I know, at this point in time, there's no kind of revenue replacement.
Okay.
But maybe that would happen, but
Yeah.
as a safety net, that's the only reason why I'm suggesting.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for not laughing at me too.
That's a good question.
All right. Other than that, I don't have any questions for that.
Okay.
So do I need entertain a motion to approve or it's just a suggestion for next week?
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, at this time, we just wanted to give an update to the board and to the public, and we're going to the Finance Committee tomorrow to their meeting also to give the update. Next Tuesday, when you review the budget and approve the warrant, you'll have the special town meeting warrant, which will be a single enterprise article that will ask town meeting to see if they'll vote to authorize the transfer of up to $20,000 from ambulance retained earnings to resolve this shortfall. So
Okay.
there's no action required tonight.
Okay.
For informational purposes.
All right. Perfect.
And we'll be prepared also at town meeting, for town meeting, to give a brief presentation with the slide and so forth, if there are any questions.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thank you, Lisa and Chief, on that. Next, the FY22 budget and annual town meeting update. The FY22 budget remains in the draft 3 version, which you all have and has been on the town's website for some time now. The only outstanding items are the 2 collective bargaining agreements, which we'll talk about later this evening. Other than that, that's pretty much the budget as we're moving towards, Tuesday night's approval and then moving towards town meeting. The executive by board met last Thursday, and we talked about the budget presentation for town meeting. And we have another meeting prior to town meeting where we're going to review that. And if everyone recalls, we give sort of a basic presentation of the overall of the budget for town meeting when we get to that article. Additionally, we will be having a budget book, a town meeting budget book that we started last year. The buy board is going to be putting that together. So attendees it will have a book with additional information about the budget. The annual town report will also be distributed at the town meeting, and these documents are also put on the website as well. So in terms of the budget update, it's really just the 2 collective bargaining agreements as far as the potential impacts that are outstanding. And both of those items, if the negotiations come to successful conclusion for town meeting, both have their own article, require town meeting approval to authorize the first year expenses for those contracts. And at town meeting, we always do a presentation showing the first year impacts as well as the 3-year for the 3 years of the contract. So it's just hinging on those negotiations as we sort of come down to the wire. Other than that, everything has fallen into place. In terms of the town meeting, as mentioned, the warrant will close on Friday at noon is the deadline for warrant articles, and is also the deadline for citizens petitions. In Friday's packet, both the select board and the FinCom and the public will have the final draft of the warrant to review over the weekend as reviewed by town council. So obviously that will be the warrant subject to any changes that are made Tuesday night. And the FinCom will also join the select board for the budget discussion, as well as taking their position on the financial articles. Since the working draft from the last meeting, there's only been one additional article, potential article, which is a matching grant article for the facilities department. There is the opportunity to upgrade all of the lighting of the library, the fire station, the police station to LED. We did this at the town hall a few years ago, and it's about $130,000 grant, but the match is about $26,000. So that article is the only new article on the warrant side that has been submitted since the working draft. Now, the second thing we did receive today, and I know that the board has this, and we did receive a petition to amend the regional school agreement. And as the board is aware, so the regional school agreement between Ayer, Shirley, and the regional school district has a provision to amend, to make changes to the agreement. And that's under section 15 of the agreement. And there are two ways that changes to the agreement can be made. The first method is a 2/3 vote of the school committee initiating the change, then would have the select board they have a public hearing, and then the select board puts the warrant article to make the change. The second method, which I wanted to talk about briefly, is the petition method. And this is sort of new territory for many of us, at least here, to go the petition method. And in the petition method is if an individual can get at least 10% of the registered voters in one of the member towns to submit a petition, to sign a petition to make the change, then the select board in each town shall put it on the annual town meeting warrant. So in this case, Mr. Jim Quinty, who is a Shirley resident, who also is a member of the Ayer Shirley Regional School District, but as a resident, he did get the necessary 10,000, get the necessary 10% of the registered voters in Shirley to sign his petition, which seeks to amend, seeks to amend section 10 of the regional agreement, which has to do with the incurring of debt. And I'll get to that in just 1 minute when we just finish on the procedural piece. So procedurally, he got the 10% of the signatures, which the number of registered voters in Shirley is 4,333. And he got 470 registered voters to certify it, meeting the 10% requirement. And that was certified by the town clerk of the town of Shirley, Mr. Olfke. And then procedurally, that was transmitted to the secretary of the school committee. And this is all in the procedure, Mr. DeForge, who's a member of the Ayer Shirley Regional School District and is the secretary of the committee. And today he transmitted his cover letter along with the town clerk and Shirley's certification and the warrant article that the petition seeks to do was submitted to Ms. Copeland this morning, the Ayer Town Clerk, who has stamped it. So procedurally, all of the procedural pieces have been followed. So at this point, what the article, so it's by petition, and is to be printed in the warrant as an article, would read, we the petitioners wish to amend the agreement between the towns of Ayer and Shirley with respect to the formation of a regional school district, which was approved in March of 2010 and amended in September and October of 2012. This amendment request will follow the procedure outlined in section 15 of the agreement, specifically amendment by petition of 10% of the registered voters in Shirley. And to wit, striking the entirety of section 10, incurring of debt, and replacing it with the school committee is empowered to incur debt consistent with the terms and conditions of general law, chapter 71, section 16, except for the incurring of temporary debt in anticipation of revenue, the process that appears in subsection D of chapter 71, section 16 will be followed. So right now, if you look at the agreement, we follow section N, and they're looking to change it to section D. And the section N, in this case, and has been used before, for example, the Fields project is a good example. It went to an election. If it changes to section D, the school committee could authorize a borrowing or an incurring of debt. When they do that, the select board, each member town has 60 days to call a special town meeting. If no special town meeting is called, the debt is authorized. But a town meeting under the section D could call a town meeting to disapprove the debt. So in a way, the section D system allows a member town meeting to deny or disagree with the borrowing of the debt initiated by the school committee. So it's unclear exactly what the petitioner's intent is. I would have no problem asking him, or I'm sure anybody on this body wouldn't either. But that's what the petition looks to change. Now, it would have to pass by a simple majority in Ayer on April 26th, and then it would have to pass on May, I believe it's the town meeting in Shirley is on May 11th.
I think it's a May 11th.
10th.
Yeah.
I think they're May 10th. It's a Monday, May 10th, because our election's
10th.
May 11th. Because their
Yeah, so
election's
it would
May
have-
4th. It's like everything's right after another.
Yeah, so it would have to pass by simple majority in both town meetings, and then it has to be certified by the Commissioner of Education, a lot along the lines like how our bylaws ultimately have to be certified by the Attorney General. In talking with town council, so at this point, because the petition process has been satisfactorily fulfilled, the select board would place this petition as written as a warrant article. It would say in the sponsor line by petition, so it's obviously not sponsored by the select board. The select board could print its position on this if it has a position, recommends, doesn't recommend, like you do on other articles, as the select board controls the warrant as well. The final issue for consideration, as the board knows, in Ayer, with the exception of department heads through the moderator, it's been the practice that a non-resident receives unanimous consent from town meeting to address town meeting. It's again the discretion of the moderator, but it's important to note that Mr. Quinty is a resident of Shirley, as are the 400 and something individuals, the 470 that have signed the petition. So as far as a presentation or so forth, there's that piece as well. And lastly, as the board knows, the Ayer Shirley Regional School Committee is not in support of this change, hence the petition process. So that's probably the biggest development, if you will, with respect to the warrant since the select board last met. And you have these documents will be put on, tomorrow will be available on the town website for the public, and then the board has them, as does the FinCom. And this would generally appear as when I say the last article, the petition articles appear at the end of the warrant, the citizens petitions and so forth. So we sort of just put them in the order that they come.
So you said unanimous consent. So if Ayer said no and Shirley said yes, it doesn't go anywhere.
I meant unanimous consent to speak at town meeting if you're not a resident.
You're right. I did word it that
Yeah.
way. So I meant,
Yeah.
what if the town of Ayer said no, but Shirley said yes, as far as the petition itself?
It doesn't pass.
Yeah.
It doesn't pass,
It has
right?
to pass both town meetings.
I have a question. Do we have any clarification from town council how this would impact any potential future school projects that are related specifically to, say, the elementary school here in Ayer? If it's worded in a broad base, my fear is that any debt would have to go through both towns, even if the project or expenditures would only be through one town.
Through the chair, Selectman Hood, your fear is a legitimate one based on the way it's written, in council's opinion, and in looking at it, that is a concern.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair, it's Pauline. I have a question. Pauline's
Sure.
iPad, I'm sorry.
Sure, Pauline, go ahead.
Thank you. Robert, I might have missed what you said entirely, but has this petition article received the necessary 10% signatures from registered voters in Ayer to be on our town meeting warrant?
Just in Shirley, and the way the agreement is worded, and that's the interesting thing, is that you only need 10% from one of the members.
One town,
Yeah.
of course.
So as you'll see, it is certified. These are Shirley. There are 470 certified signatures for the town of Shirley. We don't have any, there is not a similar petition just for the.
In
record
Ayer,
here.
yeah. That was my fear. So thank you for clarifying, but maybe that's an amendment that should be considered. Anyway, thank you for that.
Thank you, Pauline.
So again, in the interest of time, obviously on Tuesday, the lion's share of the meeting will be the review of the budget and the warrant, and you'll have everything in its final form on Friday in the packet. And we look forward to moving forward with that and then preparing for town meeting. Lastly, in preparing for town meeting, upon Tuesday's approval, as we always do, the warrant will be posted throughout various public places in town. Additionally, it'll be posted on the town's website. We will also send it for printing and mailing to the 4,200 households in Ayer. And then we will, as the town clerk mentioned earlier in her report, doing some outreach on town meeting coming up with signage and so forth. We do the articles of the day where we do summaries on each of the articles as we move forward. I also want to point out with respect to the article before town meeting on the proposed TIF agreement, one of the terms of that agreement was that there'd be a public information session done by the company on not only the expansion project, but the terms of the TIF. That is going to be scheduled for Wednesday, April 14th at 6 p.m. and we'll start that public promotion this week. Additionally, with consent from the moderator at town meeting, there'll also be a brief presentation on that. So more to come as we move forward with the town meeting and the budget. Lastly, we are prepared to use our same system for town meeting. As the board knows, and for the public's benefit, the town meeting has to be conducted in person. There are not remote provisions. We will have all of the appropriate COVID-19 safety protocols. Unlike the June meeting of last year, as we saw in October, the entire remote system, and a special thanks to Cindy and APAC and the team, the remote, the overflow room will be fully functional, and we'll be doing some public outreach on what to expect with town meeting. So I think we're in good shape for a successful town meeting and discussion. The next item is the recommendation on the uses of free cash. And I have a couple of shared slides that Ms. Antonellis will put up. Well, the buy board met on March 25th. This was one of the agenda items to talk about the recommended uses for free cash. And let me just start, and I'm joined on this item with Ms. Gabri and of course, Selectman Hood, who is on the buy board and was at the meeting. This was a unique year in many ways, and one of them is the certification of free cash was very late in the budget season this year. That is not a reflection of anybody with the town. As I said before, the Department of Revenue has been delayed due to COVID impact. So the certification of free cash came very late. In fact, it came right before the second public budget forum presentation. So as I said at that forum, Ms. Gabri and I said that at the forum, put forth just sort of a general recommendation with the caveat that the buy board would look at it, and of course the select board and the FinCom. And so on the 25th, we did meet, and this first slide just shows you a couple of overarching themes. So the stabilization balance as of December 2020 is 2.6 million. Capital stabilization is at 2.7 million. And the certified free cash we're talking about that was just certified not that long ago is at 1.5 million. Next slide, please. So at the time, the free cash at the top you see certified is a 1.5 million. And then these were the recommended uses. The UDAG replenishment for the Worthingdale lawsuit, 230,000. This is the final of 3 payments to resolve that issue. And that it would be a separate article at town meeting. So we're recommending the 230,000 to close that out. The GASB 45 OPEB, 178,000 is the free cash. The balance to get to 300,000 is from the local meals tax. This is a recommendation that's made by the OPEB Board of Trustees, which is also based in the financial policies that we've been putting 300,000 each year. So we're recommending the 178 of the free cash for that. The forward funding of the pension proposal, town meeting adopted this made the first payment at the fall town meeting in October of 300,000. And if you recall, and we'll be prepared to provide this info again, Mr. Johnston, our benefits and payroll manager, originally had come up with this concept, and we found out that if we forward funded the pension, the town's pension assessment, by 2 $300,000 payments, the town would realize approximately 1.5 million in savings over the pension payback schedule. And so town meeting approved the first payment in October at 300,000. This would be the second to realize those overall savings. And then after that, this would not be a reoccurring theme. The next was town meeting also adopted the creation of the compensated absences special revenue fund. The town and town meeting did approve this, can create a special revenue fund and fund that fund to cover absences for separation upon service, largely retirements. And as the board will recall, we discussed previously that how we've handled separation from service and retirements in the past is as they happened, they would either hit the individual department or we would go to the reserve fund. And as we presented as far as a financial best practice, by having this fund, we can better prepare for the known retirements and address those retirements without hitting either the department or the reserve fund. And Ms. Gabri, and she can speak to this as well, has calculated that we'd want to get that fund to 100,000 would be a comfortable number moving forward. So this would be the first payment at 50,000 moving forward and on that. So then we get to the issue of the capital stabilization and the stabilization. And what Ms. Gabri and I had put forth was the lion's share going to capital stabilization at 790,000, which has been the last several town meetings, and then this smaller amount on the stabilization. And the reasons being is that we have reached the appropriate benchmark for the stabilization account a few years back, and that's a huge achievement. We obviously want to continue to put some in to maintain that, but the town had made a decision a few years back to really ramp up the capital stabilization for really two reasons. One is that at the time, the capital stabilization was much lower. Secondly, we all know that capital projects, especially capital emergencies, can be very expensive, and this would be dedicated for capital. And then also, as we've learned from the Department of Revenue in the capital stabilization, those funds could also be potentially used for projects such as a new elementary school, a new senior center, and so forth. Keep in mind, access to the capital stabilization and stabilization requires 2/3 vote of town meeting. So just for everyone's benefit, it's not a decision of the select board or the administration, it's town meeting. So next slide, please, Carly. So at the buy board meeting on the 25th, on this slide here, you'll see that the FY22 omnibus budget as of draft 3 is at 16.1 million. And as I mentioned earlier, the only remaining item which will have negligible impact to that amount is the outstanding union contracts. And per the stabilization policy, it says we should strive to be a minimum of 7% of the operating revenue, the stabilization should be, which the balance for FY22 would be about 1.1 million, which we do exceed. And the town has achieved and continues to maintain its stabilization balance. And the last several years, the town has been increasing capital stabilization in preparation for significant capital emergencies. Thus, the significant amount has gone to capital stabilization, with the minimum amount going to stabilization to maintain that balance. And so we put forth to the buy board some scenarios sort of for their input. And scenario 1 was sort of that original one that Ms. Gabri and I put forward, with 790,000 in capital and 5,607 in stabilization. That has been, if you look back the last several town meetings, it's looked like that. The numbers are different, but the lion's share being in the capital. Then we proposed a scenario 2, which you could put 690,000 in the capital and put 105,607 in the stabilization. And ultimately, you know, as Ms. Gabri and I said to the buy board, it's a decision, you know, for the policymakers going into town meeting. And then scenario 3, we sort of said would be any combination of the 795,607. So that 795,607, you could put any combination between the two. So at the buy board meeting, the consensus, it was a sort of a unanimous consensus, was to go with scenario 1. There wasn't a vote taken. Obviously, the decision for what's printed in the warrant will need to be finalized on Tuesday, April 6th. But I wanted to have this discussion with the select board as we did with the buy board, as I will with the full FinCom, because we got the certification of the free cash so late, right before the forum. Normally, we have had all this discussion as we move forward. So the consensus from the buy board was sort of scenario one. And with that, I don't know if there are questions from the select board, or I know Selectman Hood, who is a longtime member of the buy board and was at the meeting, if I missed anything, wants to add, or Lisa through the chair.
Yeah, one other thing that came up in the conversation with the buy board is when regarding the split of capital stabilization and stabilization, in the event that the town ever gets sued and its assets are vulnerable, capital stabilization can't be touched or doesn't count towards that number, whereas regular stabilization does. That came out of some conversations years ago when we started looking at parceling out part of that stabilization specifically for capital. The other thing I'll offer is, which Robert did touch upon, is the potential usage that we have for the capital. Buy board, it seems to agree that it'd be better allocated to capital stabilization, so that when we have some of the larger potential projects coming up in the near future, whether it's regarding an elementary school, could even be the field project or a senior center, we wouldn't have those funds available to lessen the taxpayer burden.
Thank you, Scott. I don't have any other questions on that. Janice?
I agree with
No,
everything
Scott
Robert.
ended up answering what I was going to ask, so.
Sorry, Lisa.
Okay, thank you. I agree with everything Robert and Scott have said. And the reason why we want funds of that magnitude set aside for capital projects are very expensive. And those very expensive capital projects normally come with a debt exclusion. So we're trying to minimize the tax impact, the impact on the taxpayers, by setting aside funds and using them at a future date to kind of keep down the cost of the project, have another available source. That's all.
Great, thank you, Lisa.
Mr. Chair, Pauline again.
Yes, Pauline. Yeah.
And Lisa's last comment feeds exactly into what I would like to ask or comment on maybe. But I do have a question. Who currently is on the buy board, Robert?
So through the chair, the buy board is Selectman Hood, represents the select board. The chair of the FinCom, Mr. Diamond, the vice chair, Mr. Mark Smith, Lisa as the finance manager, myself as the town manager, the assistant town manager, Miss Antonellis, and Miss Tierney, the treasurer and tax collector.
Excellent, thank you. So everybody who's on the buy board is internal to the entire discussion and decision-making process regarding stabilization, no independent minds, if you will, like a resident or anything like that.
It is a publicly posted meeting, and the Zoom is available to residents if they do want to join a buy board meeting.
I understand that, and I believe it's usually at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Which has been the way it's been for a decade.
A year
or
yeah,
more.
no, I understand.
And to be honest, I mean, I just want to say this, that, and Pauline knows who I'm talking about, but a former selectman who was on the buy board never gave an update at a selectman's meeting. And since Scott has been on the committee, the buy board, he has always given an update. So it's always been a pleasure, because prior to Scott being on it, all we got was, we had a meeting.
Nothing.
And
And that's
that
not a
was the
criticism.
extent of the conversation.
No,
So,
I understand. And it's not a
yeah.
criticism. I just was curious because I will tell you, I haven't been able to find much on the website regarding the buy board. And that's a whole different matter. And I understand that personnel have been out and so on and so forth. And this is an environment none of us have ever experienced in our lifetime. So I'll just leave it at that. But with respect to Lisa's comment, and I appreciate it, and I respect her opinion immensely, as she well knows, to lessen the impact on the taxpayers, we have almost $800,000 of free cash to allocate to capital or stabilization or whatever. We have borrow articles for capital budget requests totaling 5 million plus, and budget requests for transfer from stabilization of 115. In my mind, I think I would have been happier that the board and the buy board and the financial folks would have suggested using free cash at least for the 115. So there's no taking from stabilization at all. Why put money in and then take money out, if you think of it that way? And just, I'm not asking for an answer, I'm just throwing out my thought process. But I would also prefer, and I always said this as a sitting selectman or finance committee member, I don't like to borrow money. Just don't like to borrow money. Why not use the funds we have, the roughly $800,000 that is intended for capital stabilization, to buy these items outright from free cash rather than borrow them at a rate of interest that impacts the taxpayers, because we all know what we decide at annual town meeting in May impacts our taxes come December of that year, or whenever the tax rate hearing is. I know I don't get it right all the time. And the residents don't understand that, but we all do. So I know you're going to approve this in the next couple of days, the warrant, that is. But I would like you to at least give some thought to that. Even if you approve the warrant as written, these changes can be proposed and voted at town meeting, and it will lessen the burden on the residents, in my humble opinion. So I'll just leave it at that. It's just food for thought, nothing more.
Great, thank you, Pauline.
Thank
Sean, if I
you.
may?
Yes, absolutely, Scott, please.
So Pauline, you do bring up a very good point, and we did touch upon this at the buy board discussion. If you look at what's in capital stabilization and what we're proposing to put in, the level is going to be around $3.5 million in capital stabilization. Plus we have another 2.5 or 2.7 million in regular stabilization. And my comment was that we need to start utilizing that.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think my view on it, to be honest, I think we have a couple of potential large projects in the near future. And right now, borrowing is cheap because interest rates are still relatively low. But in the future, if either of the projects, whether it's senior center, elementary school, utilizing for the field projects at the high school, if those don't happen in the next year or so, then yeah, we really need to rethink the way that we budget and the way that we utilize our free cash in our capital stabilization.
Fair enough. I ask a question of Scott in relation to his response, Mr. Chair.
Sure, go ahead. No,
Thank you. So, Scott, is it your view, and I respect your opinion on anything accounting, that the field project may be funded from capital stabilization?
We would have that potential if we wanted to go that route, yes.
I think that's a great piece of information to share with people in town, given the issue that the field project creates for people. But in another view, when we're talking borrowing, and I know you were well informed with respect to how the new school building was created and funded. The school committee uses a formula, and Jonathan created this. I asked him about it. I don't understand it. My math is not like an accountant. But he created some kind of formula where the school committee told the towns, if you remember, exactly what the approximate yearly impact would be when we voted to approve that $56 million or whatever the school cost to build. And that persuaded a lot of people, myself included, to vote in favor of the funding request. I would love it if the town of Ayer, through its finance manager or yourself as a sitting selectman, create that formula so every time we borrow millions and millions of dollars, people know how it will actually impact their taxes over the course of borrowing, as opposed to what we get from the warrant. The first year interest is insignificant. when it comes to what the borrow of 15 or 20 years ultimately costs on the taxes. My taxes have quadrupled in the less than 30 years I've lived where I live now. Quadrupled. I know that has something to do with the value of my property, and that's fine. But and I have no complaints about anything that the town of Ayer provides. You all know that. But I think we need to be more open with the residents who don't understand what we might understand. And if we could show them what this almost $5.5 million will cost them over the period of borrowing, it may cause a little friction, but at least we're informing them of more information than we have ever provided before. Again, just food for thought. It's a simple formula if you understand it. I just don't do the math that way.
So
Chair.
Pauline, generally the assessors will do a calculation on any of the larger projects. I think right now with the fields, we're still waiting just to see what the final price tag will be. On the first pass with the field project, there was the calculation that the assessors put out. I do have an Excel spreadsheet that needs to be updated for the tax split, but you know, we definitely strive to put that information if there's something that's going to be a debt exclusion that's going to hit the tax rate directly.
Mhm. So if I ask on April 26th what the impact of the $5.4 million borrow article will be on our taxes over the course of the borrow time, you'll have that answer?
Could I comment at
Yes.
some point, Mr.
Yes,
Sure.
Chair?
Lisa, please.
First of all, most of that $5 million is water or sewer related, so they're separate from the general fund.
Yep.
They are not debt exclusions. And the rest of the borrow articles are within the budget. They do not raise your taxes, okay? They're within our regular, all of our revenues, okay? So they're within that amount. So they will, it's not like a debt exclusion, which a debt exclusion adds to your tax bill. Those do not. So I really think that the thinking here on the buy board is the proper one for now, because we know we're going to have an elementary school at some point, which will cost tens of millions of dollars, possibly a new senior center, same probably close cost, and possibly fields. So I think my reasoning is, and I know I don't pay taxes in Ayer, but I think our financial statements show a lot of what I have done for the town of Ayer. And the reasoning is to put more towards those large capital items, which we know are coming down the road, which are considered general fund, not enterprise fund, put more towards those. And so to reduce the amount of tax burden on the taxpayers.
Mr.
Yes.
Chair, may I? Oh, sorry, Lisa.
In addition to that, Jonathan did not come up with the formula. As Scott said, the assessors in each town came up with those numbers for the school committee.
So, Mr. Chair, if I might.
Sure, go ahead.
So Lisa, I said Jonathan came up with the formula because he's the one who sent it to me. If I misspoke, I apologize. I'm not blaming anybody for anything. I'm just throwing out my views. And Lisa, you know, I have always, always, always supported you in every one of your suggestions and decisions in many, many, many respects. All I'm saying is, if we're going to put $800 into capital stabilization and we have several $100,000 of capital expenditures on the warrant article, why not just use that free cash money to pay for those things? 115 in one group, and I can't do the math quick enough for the other, but it's about 300,000, maybe a little more, and put the balance in capital stabilization. But also, Lisa, the first time I heard why we need to bulk up capital stabilization is what you just said. It didn't occur to me that we're trying to bulk up capital stabilization to pay for a new senior center, to pay for a new elementary school, and to possibly pay for the field project. That all makes perfect sense to me. So I suggest that's what you say at town meeting as to why more money is going into capital stabilization than the regular stabilization. I totally understand it. And I also appreciate, Scott, you explaining why if the town is sued, and yes, I should have thought of that, but many of you might remember how much difficulty, Lisa, you will especially, we even had just creating a capital stabilization fund. So anyway, just my thoughts as I think about this, so that I do not become a burden at town meeting. You all are the ones who make the decisions. I'm just sharing a resident's thoughts, and that's it. You can do as you wish.
Great. Thank you, Pauline. Janice,
you,
did
Sean.
you have?
So I actually had a few things that went through my head during that whole conversation. Unfortunately, I lost a few of them, but one of the big things I think that, as you know, we put explanatory notes on the warrant articles. And I've been a big advocate on trying to make the explanatory note as simple as possible. There have been times when the explanatory note has literally looked like the article itself, and it's like, well, then what was the point? So I recommend, as far as in the explanatory note, is also kind of explaining what Lisa said, that the borrowing is not affecting the tax rate. So when you're doing the omnibus you're on that article, explanatory note, borrowing does not affect tax rate. This affects tax rate, something like that. And again, looking at each explanatory note, because, Pauline's correct in the respect that we all understand it, but there's always a group that's going to come in that doesn't understand it. And we're trying the best we can to make sure that everyone understands it. And sometimes that simple note is the best way to communicate that. So I would ask that our explanatory notes, whatever they look like right at this particular moment, be kind of looked at again and maybe adjusted as needed in an attempt to hopefully communicate even better.
All right. If there's no other questions on that, I think, Robert, I think you have one more item under your manager's report.
Yes. So the last item, and I have just a couple of quick slides on, and I'm also joined, and I appreciate, I see on the call, joined by two of the trustees from the Woodlawn Cemetery, Mr. Rick Scotchless and Miss Ginny Matthews. As I said, I wanted to give an update on the ongoing plan for the transfer of the Woodlawn Cemetery. So in the interest of time, and I'll go to the next slide, and we are going to have a presentation at town meeting. Just to recap, the trustees of the Woodlawn Cemetery approached the town, really beyond last year, prior to COVID-19, would ultimately like to transfer the ownership and the operations of the Woodlawn Cemetery to the town of Ayer. The trustees of the Woodlawn Cemetery have done an excellent job as stewards of the Woodlawn Cemetery. And as time has gone by, and through you, Mr. Chair, can have both of the trustees that we do have speak to this. I'm not saying anything that they haven't said. They're looking to put the cemetery in good hands moving forward. They've done a great job. Many are looking to retire, but there's also been challenges as a small entity, the Woodlawn Cemetery Company, challenges in the capacity to make the costs work and to keep the cemetery moving forward. So they'd like to move towards transferring it to the town, which I think is a noble and correct thing to do. And we discussed this concept back on February 18th. And the transfer would be for the Woodlawn Cemetery land, so the entire cemetery, including the graves, all of the property and equipment, and all of the cemetery funds. So think of that as a transfer at no cost, a transfer to the town, also including the perpetual care. Next slide, please. So what does the transfer of the Woodlawn Cemetery to the town mean? What it means is that the town would legally own the Woodlawn Cemetery. The town would own all of the personal property and equipment associated with the Woodlawn Cemetery. And the town would receive the Woodlawn Cemetery funds and perpetual care funds for the purposes of the cemetery. So the transfer of those funds would be specific for cemetery purposes. And there is a mechanism to do that. So the funds would not just go into the general fund. There's a provision for that. The town would be responsible moving forward for the operation and maintenance of the Woodlawn Cemetery. Next slide. So again, why, because we've gotten this question, why would we want to transfer it? There are many residents that actually don't realize that the Woodlawn Cemetery isn't, if you will, run by the town. Again, the trustees would like to leave the cemetery in good hands. The Woodlawn Cemetery doesn't have the future capacity to continue to operate and maintain the cemetery. They've done a great job, but the financial situation, also in changes in burial practices and so forth, the town does have the capacity moving forward. And as a municipal cemetery would be eligible also for other grants and so forth moving forward. It is a historic and it is an active cemetery. So we have an obligation to not only maintain the historic aspect of the cemetery and maintain it, but also the town would operate it moving forward. So there are still active burials that would occur. And the town master plan, the most recent master plan, did identify a municipal cemetery as a goal, because uniquely, and this is not the driving impetus, I want to make it clear, behind this transfer, but coincidentally, the master plan did identify Ayer is unique in the sense that it does not have a municipal cemetery. There's St. Mary's run through St. Mary's and Woodlawn run through the Woodlawn Cemetery Company. That's a unique in that sense. Next slide. So the transfer process is really a two-step process. And the first step is to obtain town meeting authorization to proceed with the transfer. And that will be Article 26 on the annual town meeting. Town meeting needs to give the authorization to the town to proceed with the transfer. Sort of like the authorization for the acquisition of land or the acquisition of a gift, you need town meeting authorization. Then with the town meeting authorization, step 2, as it says, as authorized by town meeting, the town working with Woodlawn, and we have a great working relationship, and Miss Matthews has been a wealth of knowledge and very helpful to complete the transfer of the cemetery from the Woodlawn Cemetery Company to the town of Ayer. Next slide. In step 2, and some of this has been underway, the details of step 2, so if, assuming we get a green light from town meeting, would be to complete the inventory of all the property and equipment that Woodlawn would be transferring, assess the overall cemetery conditions, and Woodlawn has provided us with a lot of information on that, assess and audit all of the financials prior to transfer, establish a governance structure for the cemetery, establish an operations plan, and then ultimately establish the FY23 budget for funding. Now, on that, I just want to add that with the transfer, the funds that the Woodlawn Cemetery currently has, those funds would come to the town, and those funds could be used in the interim before we integrate it as part of the budget, moving forward. Next slide. So the proposed timeline for the transfer is assuming on April 26th, town meeting authorizes the transfer. Then from May through September, we would complete the step 2 due diligence, and Woodlawn is putting in place its maintenance contracts for the upcoming season. They use a third-party vendor for the grass cutting and so forth. And so that would be in place, and the town could assume that, or as we complete this piece of it, we'd get through, the first season under Woodlawn. And then by October, when I say finalize the transfer to the town, that'd be the target date for all of the steps in part 2. And we'd also like to, at the fall town meeting, include town meeting's adoption of the cemetery commission statute. So there's a statute that allows the town to create a cemetery commission. The cemetery commission would oversee the policies of the cemetery, and the operational part, the grave digging and so forth, the operational part would be under the Department of Public Works, would provide that work to the commission. And then we would be looking to put forth the cemetery budget. That remains somewhat to be determined. We know that there would be funds coming from the Woodlawn Cemetery, but also moving forward with it as part of the budget. And then at the latest, when I say by next year, and this could happen even before then in terms of interim steps, the Woodlawn Cemetery then moving forward would be governed by a cemetery commission with the operational work performed by the DPW, and it would be funded through the town, but we would receive some revenue from grave sales and so forth. So really, the first step is the town meeting's authorization to proceed with the transfer process. If town meeting doesn't grant that authorization, then we'll go back to the drawing board with Woodlawn, but we're hopeful that town meeting would grant the authorization to move forward with the transfer. And if for some reason, and we don't foresee this, if there was some issue that presented itself in the transfer piece that wasn't in the best interest of the town, of course, the select board would act accordingly. So that's sort of just another update as to where we're at. And I know that I have two members also through the chair from the board if they want to add anything. And I just want to make one other point crystal clear. The acquisition or the transfer of the Woodlawn Cemetery to the town of Ayer is just that, is a transfer of the cemetery. Legally, the town cannot repurpose the existing cemetery. The town cannot repurpose the land that hasn't been used for grave purposes, because I know that question has presented itself, that it will remain a cemetery in perpetuity. The difference is the ownership and operations of it will move from the Woodland Lawn Cemetery Company, the trustees, to the town of Ayer.
And I'm sure this point was clear, but just to make sure, this includes any spots that are not currently being used as graves, correct? This is
correct.
The entirety of the property.
Right. There is capacity on the property for future graves. Right. And it would be the responsibility of the town after the transfer and moving forward in our goal to use it for that purpose. And of course, the town can charge obviously for burials and what have you, and the commission would set those rates. But yeah, it's important to note that it is a cemetery and cannot be repurposed, especially the portion of it that is not currently with graves.
Okay. Before we take any questions, do either of the trustees have anything to add to what Robert has already presented?
So, Mr. Chair, just for everybody's benefit there, I think we have three of the trustees on here. We have Jody Davin, we have Ginny Matthews, and Mr. Scotchless. And I invited them as I did previous, not putting them on the spot, but if they have anything they want to add through you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't think of anything.
Okay. All right. Are there any, so I did see that Ms. Withy, did you have some questions or a question?
Actually, I don't think I'm going to be that long this evening. I was just going to say that it would be helpful if you could present a map on GIS of this. This is a big opportunity, a big responsibility. It's 10.5 acres from what I saw near the Harvard and Devon's lines. I expressed my thoughts to support select board memberhood today, but I want to note that I did ask. I want to note it for the record, honestly. And I'm watching, and this isn't a situation where no one asked. So thank you, and thank you.
Great, thank you so much.
So just, and we will have, the presentation for town meeting will have an overview of a map and more of the statistics and so forth. And it is approximately a 10-acre site. The Woodlawn Cemetery, for example, for this season, that will spend about on maintenance, grass cutting and so forth, the cost about $25,000 for the season. We will have estimated cost impacts for town meeting. I want to stress the estimates because we have to get the authorization first to do all of the transfer due diligence. For example, also the Woodlawn Cemetery, they charge for a burial is $800 for a burial that they charge. The town, again, that has yet to be determined. Also, the funds, and we'll have estimates, I don't want to get into all the specifics, but there are funds that would be transferred from Woodlawn Cemetery to the town of Ayer. And the only caveat is that they have to be used for cemetery purposes.
And this might be, this is very early and probably premature, but is the thinking that the maintenance and the upkeep will be just absorbed into the current DPW positions that are already there? Or is this something we're looking for, like somebody specifically for this in the future?
So there are three models that the superintendent is going to look at. One is, and a decision obviously hasn't been made. One is that we could subcontract. So the work that Woodlawn currently does, they use contractors and what have you. We could subcontract that function. We could do that function in-house, and it would be through the DPW, meaning the grave digging and what have you. And then there is the sale of graves, and that component, which we're looking at, could be done through DPW admin staff. Also, the town clerk's office, I've had some informal conversations with the town clerk as a repository. A lot of these records, when they are transferred, they are permanent records. So there are some different models that we can look at and will look at for the most, efficient in that sense. I think it's important to note that there'd be some budgetary impact in FY23, not in FY22, because the intent would be to, Woodlawn already has a lot of this in place for this upcoming season. But as we move into FY23, that yet to be determined.
Okay.
And
Any other questions or?
Mr. Chair, I don't know if I see Ginny I see her now. You just got to unmute yourself, Ginny. I think you're muted. There you go.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
I don't know if I can help in any way. I'd like to help if I can.
Okay. So Ginny you're the treasurer.
Yes.
She's the treasurer, a wealth of knowledge, and we've been working with her, Mr. Scott.
You can't hear it, but that's the one down the lower left is the treasurer.
Oh, okay, there you are. And Mr. Scotchless is on. So we're looking to have this be a collaborative effort and a successful transfer. And I think we all have the same goal, and that goal is to continue the important legacy of Woodlawn Cemetery and to preserve it moving forward. I mean, it's a gateway to our town. It is an active burial site. It's a historic burial site. It has a veterans component, and it's an opportunity for the town of Ayer, working with Woodlawn, to do the right thing moving forward. And I appreciate the Woodlawn Cemetery's forward view and forward thinking about the future of the cemetery.
Thank you guys very much.
Scott, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Go ahead.
This is Dave Bertha.
Oh, hello, Dave.
Hey, I guess I have one of the questions I have for the acceptance at town meeting, and I do want to say that, I think overall understanding what's going on with Woodland it sounds like, a good idea, because you don't want anything go into disrepair or have any real issues. But the only thing is town meeting, I'm a little, I guess, say uncomfortable with of doing all the due diligence, knowing all the assets and everything, not at town meeting. I mean, not exactly, but to not have that information, you know, what I'm hearing is, you know, okay, we're going to accept it, says, okay, it's a good idea, do all this, but we won't have even like the budgetary stuff or the assets and all that available at town meeting. And then at that point, we're saying, okay, if there's any kind of issues, or the Board of Selectmen will find out, so we're leaving it all up to the Board of Selectmen at that point to see if there's any problems, whatever. I guess I say I'm a little uncomfortable. I'd like to at least know what the assets are, a little more financial information prior to accepting it. I guess I'm not comfortable just leaving it up to the Board of Selectmen to solve any kind of issues, and they'll just do it. I mean, I wouldn't do that with a car dealer and say, oh, well, the dealer will fix it if there's something wrong.
Yes. So I understood Robert's presentation correctly. This initial warrant article is just to approve the process to begin. And then there's a couple more steps in there. So it wouldn't be just leaving it up to the board to accept this. Robert, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
No, and to Mr. Bedertha's point, which is a good one, and as I mentioned, for the presentation at town meeting, we intend to show, for example, not only the visuals, but to have the financial information, the information on the inventory. That's so at town meeting, our goal is that town meeting will have a good sense of, okay, this is the financial resources that would be transferred to the town from Woodlawn. So we'd have a sense of that. This is what the inventory of assets would be. We have identified through information provided by Ginny and the board and the superintendent, some of the future maintenance issues. So we will have a comprehensive presentation for town meeting to consider. And we're confident that it'll have sufficient information to move forward with the transfer.
He went away again here.
Okay.
Oh, it seemed like I couldn't hear you there for a second. Oh, I still can't, but I can't actually hear you people talking, but so I guess I just wanted to say that I'm, you know, as long as, so this is it though. I mean, if we accept it at town meeting, it'll not come back to town meeting again. I mean, if we accept it at town meeting.
No, it would come back.
Yeah. We would be coming back.
This would just to start the process.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this is just, you know, asking the town, hey, are you guys interested in us doing this? And then the town would say yes or no. And if the town said yes, then we would start the process. And then we would go back to town meeting to do the rest of the process. So this is just giving the permission to start the process.
Okay, that's my mistake. That wasn't clear to me, and some things work that way, sometimes they don't.
Actually, you asking your question helped clear it up for me too, so.
Okay. Fantastic. Yeah, no, that's what I wanted to hear.
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
If you have to go back a second time, at what point would you do it? Would you do it in October, or would you go all the way to 22?
October.
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 Okay, any other comments or questions for this? No?
Mr. Chair, if there isn't, I just want to thank the trustees for joining us for this part and for their patience in my report getting to this point. And if there aren't any other questions from the select board, that does conclude my report for this evening.
Okay, yeah. Thank you guys very much for joining us this evening.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Night.
Good night.
Okay, so our next item up is any new business or selectmen's questions? I didn't see any. Janice?
First, I just want to apologize to everybody who's been hearing my phone ring and my dog bark. It has been quite hectic on this end for me, and I just want to apologize for any inconvenience or interruptions that I may have caused tonight.
It's quite all
And
right.
and then I'm just going to also just let everybody know that if you go to the Town of Ayer's website, under the town clerk, there is a resident's guide to town meeting that may or may not help answer some people's questions, hopefully. And that's it.
All right. Okay, with that, so our next item up is to move into executive session. Jess, do you want to read the thing or?
Sure.
Okay.
I make a motion that the select board move into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, exemption number 3, union contract negotiations, police patrol and dispatch contract update, to negotiate in public may inadvertently disclose the town's position, and that the select board will adjourn from executive session and not go back into open session. We will
Second.
adjourn for the night.
All right. Board Member Livingston, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Hood, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, and we are now in executive session.